let's also find out what our guest thinks. For the hour, we have National Trial Attorney Michael Jaafar. Thank you, Michael, for joining us. Tell us what your thoughts are about this witness and, in general, this self-defense claim by the defendant.
You know, this is the defendant's case to lose. He's got everything going for him except for his little presence in the courtroom with no empathy. But this testimony that we just saw right now with the knife, I think this only serves to help him, because at the end of the day, that, you know, this shows that there was no premeditation. He wasn't carrying around a weapon. He wasn't walking around the neighborhood with this knife. This was a steak knife laying around in the kitchen, right? And so it shows that he was surprised by this event. And think about it. Wouldn't you be surprised if a bunch of guys roll up at your house, some of them in bicycles, one of them in a truck as big as your house, they show up to assault you? You're going to be stunned. I know he has some military training, but I don't think anybody would be expecting something like that. So he went in and got a steak knife. So clearly he wasn't at a gun store buying a bunch of military knives. He got a steak knife. And so I think this testimony right now about the way the knife was procured, I think this helps him. This whole entire case is his case to lose. He's got to show more empathy. But other than that, I mean, this testimony just furthers the whole self-defense narrative.
Yeah, and as the defense brought out, Michael, the drawer that he went to was very close to that garage door, so it was right there. Again, it goes against the premeditation. So what point do you think the prosecution was making by bringing that out? Because I guess one of the questions that remain with me is, how will the jury look at the fact that he did go into the house and get a gun, get a knife without any real knowledge? I mean, he knew they were coming, but without any real knowledge of what they were coming to do or whether they had any weapons.
I think the prosecution, they just whiffed on this one, right? If you notice in the redirect, he didn't. The prosecutor didn't really ask any more follow-up questions. I think they whiffed on this whole entire thing. They could seem that they could feel that this case is slipping from their grasp, and they're grasping for something, but they're not. They're like rudderless in this case. You know, and even the prior witness, the son, his testimony was terrible. He wasn't sequestered properly. Kid that you see walking up on the camera right now, the prosecution is doing the best they can with terrible facts, but they still have a whole entire clan of people on video getting out of trucks and bicycles, walking into a kid's garage. The kid looks like he weighs $150, right? He looks like he weighs half the father's weight, right? And so now the prosecution is trying to convince a jury that this kid, the kid in the suit right now on camera, actually murdered the people who murdered the aggressors. So I think they're just grasping. There's nothing else they can do. They can't just leave the courtroom and say, you know, we're done. So they have to scrap for every piece of information they can.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you, and I think it is slipping from their hands. There is a narrative, Michael, they're trying to get out there that I don't think is coming across very well. But we're going to take a break. Mike, stand by. All right, still with us, National Trial Attorney Michael Jaafar. Michael, I got to ask you, what was the purpose of calling Dylan? Again, we talked about the grandpa. We kind of figured out maybe it had to do with the knife. Not sure. The only thing I can think of is there at the end, he said that Sarah, the wife of the defendant, had a knife, which I think that's what I heard him say. What are your thoughts on that?
You know, I don't know why they brought the neighbor. I could only think that they're bringing him to speak to the state of mind of the defendant. But this was puzzling because this kid, if you look at his answers, he didn't even know anything. Like he said that I didn't know what was in his hand. Things moved very fast. I have no idea how they got there. Somebody punched me in the shoulder. They partially dislocated my shoulder. I can only assume that this is just more of a fishing expedition. It doesn't seem to me like any of these witnesses were deposed in advance of the trial, because I know that they weren't able to do it. So unlike, let's say, a civil trial, these witnesses, you're hearing this for the first time, both the prosecutors and the defense. Well, the defense has spoken to some of them, prosecutors have spoken to some of them, but they haven't really seen testimony until now. So this is more of a puzzling thing. I would put this in the category of it's not going to be helpful or instructive to either party.
And in the last 30 seconds, Michael, we talked about the fact that, yes, the state does have to put all of the evidence out there in terms of the relevant evidence, et cetera. But is there a way that it could be presented more strategically to tell a compelling story on behalf of the state?
Absolutely, it can be. And these prosecutors, you know, they look like seasoned prosecutors, but I don't think I think they're overwhelmed by the facts because we're living in an era now when people have cell phone footage of almost every incident, right? Like this is a cell phone image. A cell phone video of an entire murder, a killing from beginning to end. People showed up to the house, got in there. So I think this is more of just a grasping, and the prosecutors, because the prosecutors have to put this stuff out there, but they're not required to bring every witness, but they're just fishing and fishing and fishing. And I don't think that this particular witness is helping or harming either side.
All right. Thank you so much, Michael Jaafar, for joining us today.